A lot of veteran Metarotters who played the original Medarot 1 or even some of the newer games that he showed up in will know the OG Defender type very well. It is NIT00 Knight Armor, with a kit of triple guard, wheeled legs, and the leg ability of Defense Plus, which buffs his heat and cool stat when using a defense-based skill. Now, at first glance, I actually had to go back and kind of regrade Knight Armor before recording, primarily because in early game before recent patches, Basic Guard honestly wasn't super great, and there were about a million other types of parts you could use over his that really hurt his viability on the field. But, after looking at his stats a little more thoroughly, as well as factoring more recent patch updates to the game, Knight Armor definitely is a little better than most people expect on the field, especially when he's fully raised. Triple guard on all three parts is just a defense-based action that means that while Knight Armor is on the line, he can and will intercept all incoming attacks and tank the damage in place of an ally. Now, compared to guard 300 or 500 or even other guards which were changed in a recent patch, basic guard means that he will be taking the full brunt of the blow and mitigating damage as low as possible in order to keep himself going longer. So, as unfortunate as it is, much like other members of the NIT family with him going forward, he is kind of there as nothing more than a glorified meat shield. So by himself as a pure set, he's honestly kind of weird to use. But if you do cap him out and raise him, say for a favorite, since he's a favorite bot or whatever else, he actually does make himself work to a point that even if he is going to be a glorified meat shield, he's going to do a darn good job doing so. Wheeled legs means that he will have very high mobility on most terrains, even if it is the pickiest of the bunch. But the Defense Plus leg ability means that even with the relatively high heat stat his parts possess, in the say low 700s to mid 900s in some cases, he will be going notably faster to maybe even outrun the faster enemies on the enemy side to get that guard up and running. On top of that, his legs may not be as fast as most other wheeled legs in his class that usually average about 8 to 900 or so minimum. When it comes to that, his legs are actually capping out at the low 700s in terms of mobility, at about 725. However, he actually makes up for it with superbly higher melee and shoot resist at 1236 and 1295 respectively. So while he may not be super fast, he actually does make up for it with high heat stat, a boost to heat stat, and when it comes to damage reduction, he already has a very good amount of that going for him. Even if his mobility suffers at not even 500, dodging is not something he's going to be focusing on anyway as a hardcore and OG defender. In terms of armor, naturally as a defender type, he is packing a much higher armor pool to guarantee he can stay in the game as long as possible. With head armor at just shy of 4,000 and arms at about 3,800 each, he's definitely on the upper tier in terms of armor, but when it comes to being a shield, that much is to be expected. And his legs also packing 4,300 means he's got just a little more armor going in his favor to keep him alive as long as possible. Now, as a pure set score, despite all this though, I still have to grade him about a 4.5 out of 10. While he has decently good synergy with himself as a pure defender, he has a lot of very notable weaknesses that can make using him very difficult. The first of which is the fact that he is wheeled-legged. Even if his leg can support two heavy parts, which are actually quite good, and he has a leg ability that complements his kit, they are still wheeled leg at the essence, which means he's only good on, say, 2 terrains at best, and that is including Cyber, where everybody has S rank. So he already is going to be struggling with terrain at a disadvantage right out of the gate. In addition, because he is using basic guard, he is going to be relying very heavily on his innate damage reduction to keep that damage as low as possible. And anyone that uses Destroy, Terminate, Disaster, or even Deathlock or Slip is guaranteed to trip him up every time, so if someone is fighting with a lot of ailments on the team, he's definitely not going to be doing his role very well. As mixed parts, however, I do have to rate him a little higher at a 5 out of 10. Even though I tend to grade basic guard somewhat harshly because it's just there to intercept damage and just be that meat shield, there are parts to Knight Armor that, because they are inexpensive, well, free to collect because he is in the permanent banner, he still does have some viability if you choose to raise him and cap him. And it honestly doesn't hurt to have at least one shield raised, and if you feel the need to raise his legs just in case you need them, because even if his mobility isn't high, he does make up for it moderately well with the 2 heavy slots and the much higher melee and shoot resist together to help keep his damage low.